Hi and welcome. We are here today looking at these nuts. These are almonds, and we're going to be making nut milk with this. Welcome to Elegantly Raw. So here we go. I have already activated them. I have soaked them overnight. I have dehydrated them, and they're ready to go, all activated. When you actually activate these, what happens often is that they lose their skin, which is wonderful because then the nut milk does look very white afterwards, and you can tell that it's milk. So we're going to be using these about a cup. You will use about a cup. I have a little bit more than a cup here. But today, what I'm doing is showing you something which is really different. And I'm using this machine. So this machine is called the Soy Bella. And yes, it's from Asia, and it was created to make soy milk. However, it can make other nut milks as well. And although there are other nut milk machines on the market, I find that this particular one really is outstanding, and I prefer this. I only have one problem with it, which you'll see soon enough. So on the top here, you will see it has three settings. One is milk, the other one is off, and the other one is mill. Interestingly enough, you do not press the one for milk. You press the one for mill, as if you're milling flour, because you can make other things in here, like soups and whatnot too, and you can mill things. But for the almond milk, interestingly, you press the mill button. So as you look here, you will see that there's this base here, and it's really interesting how this opens. It's actually not what you'd think. Normally, to close this, you'd close it this way and you'd open it this way, but it's the opposite. So this is what it looks like. This is where I'm putting the almonds. This is where the nuts goes. So I'm going to do that right now. But before that, I'm showing you, this is what makes the almond milk. See that? It's really an amazing machine. It's pretty easy except for the next phase, which I'll show you, which can be quite a challenge, but we are up to the challenge. So I am putting the almonds in here, all activated already. And I'm not putting the full cup. See, you can put the full cup. Now, most people would right now take these dates and they would depict them, and they would put the dates on top of the almonds. See that? These are the dates. Just make sure you remove the pith first. And they would then put this on top of the almonds. So this is one way you can do it. You can put the dates on top of here. I am not doing it because I want to show you what the trick is here, because this can be tricky. And I know some people have totally given up on it because it's been such a problem. You have to then put this in here past all the almonds. And this is where the problem lies, is getting it in here and getting it to stay. This is very unusual that it stays right away, but just so you know, that's what you have to do. So you see this is now on here and it's firm. Now in the jar, in this part of it, I have put some water. This is all alkaline water. So you pour the water in here. I did it in advance because I wanted to measure it. And there is a place there which tells you not to go above a certain line and not below a certain line. Now this part sits on here, and it usually goes in right away. So you don't usually have to jiggle with it. The important thing to remember is to then plug this in. So this goes right in here, and then you plug this into your outlet. Then what you're going to do now, I'm going to bring this closer to you so you can see this, because this is the exciting part to me. So I don't have to be straining it with that nut milk bag, which I will do another time, by the way, just that today I want to show you how to do this. The mill is in the middle. 5 times you do it if you have a lot. If I had filled it, If I put the rest of this in there, I would have done it 5 times. I'll do it maybe 2 more times. Not very noisy, is it? One more. Now, if I were making not just the milk itself, but I wanted to flavor it and put other things in it, I would take this vanilla bean, cut it open, and take it out of here and put it into a blender, and now make it much more frothy and creamier. Now, I'm going to do one more time, 4 times. You can make other nuts too. These are walnuts. You can also, I love making Brazil nuts in here. This is something that is so incredible in this machine, are the Brazil nuts. You know, we ought to be eating approximately 8 a day, depending on your height, your size, what's going on. But for the selenium in here, it's one of the few things on earth that is so rich in selenium. So we all should be eating Brazil nuts on a regular basis. I love these. I also put in there. Sometimes I mix it with the almonds too. And these are hazelnuts, which I absolutely love. Oh, the scent of this is electrifying. Okay, so I only did this 4 times. Normally we do it 5. But first I'm going to shut this down, and I'll unplug it first. Always remember to unplug it first. And then once you unplug it, you take this out. There is the milk. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that. It's dripping. So the reason for this part, this comes with it, by the way, and you put this now in here. This is so quick and so easy. And the scent, by the way, it is so intoxicating. So I'm going to leave it in here to keep dripping. If it keeps dripping, then you see, I will have the rest of this milk. Or I can also put it in a different container if I wish. And it's really up to you what you decide to do with it. I am going to take these nuts out of here. And I'm actually going to put it in here so we can measure how much more came out. Look how much came out of it already. See, so make sure you drain it all out. Don't just put this aside in the sink or something. So make sure you always unplug this before. So now look at this. Almond milk, just like that, quickly and easily. So you can either now pour it in a strainer. I have a strainer here. The reason, because just in case there's any froth, and I don't want the froth to get in, but you see, that's your almond milk. Isn't that beautiful? And how quick that was? Not hours and hours and hours. And look how much I made. Not hours and hours in the kitchen. Now, if you want to make it thicker, you just put more nuts in there. I didn't even put a full cup. And look what I got. Do you see the froth? I want to show you this. So the froth is on the top here because I have a strainer here. This is a built-in strainer in here. So just look how beautiful this milk is, though. See? So now what you can do with this, I'm going to put this here. You can start flavoring it. So this particular vanilla extract is without alcohol. So you can actually purchase it now without alcohol, which is really important for people who were alcoholics at one point to know that this regular one here has alcohol in it. Now, I can also put some cinnamon in there. I'd have to put this in the blender, though. Or if I don't have time to do the blender and you're in a hurry, then you can just take maybe some nutmeg. I love nutmeg. It's one of my favorite things, spices to play with. And just take a nutmeg like this. This is the full nutmeg. And now you just grate it in the milk. So, and then if you want to, you can put some cardamom or some cloves, or I also always make ginger juice beforehand. You could put some ginger juice in there. There is so much you can do with it. So here I've got 2 seeds of cardamom and a clove. And I could actually put that in the blender and blend it up, which we'll do another time when I do the comparison. I'm going to do in another episode, I'm going to do a comparison of the milk with the milk machine, or you doing it by hand with those. I don't know if you've ever seen me do that in another, long ago I have shows doing that, but I will show it to you in the nut bag. Using the nut bag, I'll show you both and we'll compare them, and then we'll make some things, different things with almond milk in another show. But here you go with the nutmeg, and it smells really incredible. And this, people always ask, how long will it last? Well, in my household, not at all. But for most households, it would last about, I would say, 2 to 3 days, depending on your refrigerator, depending on the weather at the time. I only do this in the winter, by the way, because I like to have a lot of fat in the winter. And I use a lot of nuts. Then I especially do almond milk a lot in the winter. And I do a lot of different things with it, which I'll be teaching here on this show as well. So what has all of this got to do with food issues, food struggles, etc., etc.? A lot. You know, when you play with your food, when you touch your food, when you actually are intimate with your food, when you actually start from scratch, what you end up doing is actually creating a relationship with the food. So if I were to purchase almond milk, I would have a totally different relationship with it. There'd be no reverence. There'd be no honoring it. There'd be no honoring myself. When you make it yourself, you begin to actually develop a relationship with the food. And before you know it, you begin to see things differently. And you begin to approach the food differently. So with that in mind, I am introducing you today to our very special guest from Toronto, Canada, one of my favorite places in the world, Bobby Umar. Welcome, Bobby.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here, or allowing me to be here. Thank you. And so I think the idea is for me to share my story with everybody. Is that right? Can I go?
Please.
Awesome. So what I'm going to share with you is my own kind of the food story. So for me, my whole life, I've been what I would call a food addict. And I love food. I love to eat food. And all my life, I ate more than when I was a little kid. I was very skinny, and I ate a lot of food. People were like, "Wow, how does he eat so much?" And my mom would say, "Wow, he eats so much." But I was always skinny. But then one day it caught up to me, and then pretty soon I became someone who was very large and a bit overweight and things like that. And for the most of my life, I celebrated, or I just didn't care, or I kind of played it up as a story. Oh yes, Bobby's a big guy, Big Bobby. That's what we used to say, who loves his food. But then at a certain point, you can't keep it up, and it catches up to you. And so one day I was working at a really busy job, 80 hours a week, and I started to get, I had a panic attack, and I started to get exhausted and headaches and things like that. And I went to see the doctor, and I also, at the same time, it was around the same time my wife and I were trying to start a family. And, I was working really long hours, 80 hours a week. I was stressed and headachy, and I just wasn't able to commit to anything outside of work or even spend as much time with my wife. And we were having trouble starting a family. So I went to the doctors. And then I ignored going back to the doctor to get the results for 3 whole months. So then I went again 3 months later, finally. And they said, I think there's something wrong. And so he said, let's do a test, another test, and then come back a week later. So then I came back a week later, and he told me, Bobby, you have diabetes. And I was like, what? And he said, well, basically what's happened is, you've always eaten a lot of food and you haven't really changed your lifestyle much, but having this stressful job, at a certain point, your pancreas kind of said, I can't take it anymore. And it just kind of snapped and stopped producing the insulin that you needed to control your blood sugar. And just for some perspective, a normal blood sugar level is below 6.2. In December, when I went, my blood sugar was 12.6. And then 3 months later, when I went again in March, my blood sugar level was at 16.8. And he said, if you don't get it under control, it's going to really, really hurt you and damage you and potentially kill you in the long run. So you need to get this under control. And I was in denial for about a week, but then I went back to my employer and I went to HR and I told them what was happening. I mentioned that sometime during my period of working with them, my pancreas couldn't take it anymore because of the long hours. And then I told my boss I want to take 2 weeks off to get my blood sugar under control, and then I want to take my hours down to something normal, like maybe 50 hours a week. Anyway, 3 weeks later, my company gave me a package saying, "See you later. We don't want to deal with you." And part of me was shocked that they basically not my problem and they weren't willing to support me. Part of me was delighted because they gave me a nice package, and I was like very happy to go. And I think I kind of blamed it on them a little bit, so they felt a little bit responsible. So they gave me a package better than I ever expected. So I was very happy about that. So I left, and then became the journey to try to get control of my life. And what I can tell you is that the first few years was not so bad. I mean, I went on medications and things like that, and that's what I would normally do. But then, it still wasn't under control. I wasn't really eating that much better, and I wasn't really exercising as much as I could. And then finally, I had this other problem where I was also a binge eater, and I was hiding my binge eating from the world. So, for example, I would binge eat at 4 p.m. before my wife and my kids came home, and then I have dinner with them again. So I'd have two large meals in a short period of time. Or I would binge at lunchtime and have twice the amount of food that you normally should eat for a person. And I did that kind of behind the scenes while I was an entrepreneur and didn't really share that with my wife and my kids. And then eventually what happened was I was seeing a diabetes doctor every 3-4 months, to track my progress. And I remember about 2 years later, he said the blood work's getting worse and worse, slow and steadily. And he basically said, I want to put you on 2 more meds. At this point, I was already on 2 meds, and he wanted me to put me on 2 more. And I was like, 4 meds. And then I got really upset. And I told him, I said, listen, I have to admit something to you right now. Okay. He's like, what? First off, 2 days ago when I had my blood work done, after I went to do my blood work, I went to McDonald's and I binged on all this food. And I told him what I ate. I ate a quarter pound with cheese and a Big Mac and large fries and nuggets. I ordered so much food, and I got angry. I said, "Look, I'm angry that I can't get this under control. I'm going to show you I can do this." And so on that day, I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to show him I can do this. And so I went on this huge kind of effort to just eat better, stop eating all the crap food I was eating. And 3 months later, I went to see him, and I had lost 37 pounds, and my blood sugar had gone down significantly. My cholesterol had gone down 50%. My triglycerides had gone down 75%. And my doctor's like, "What did you do? This is amazing." And I just want to show you I could do it because I was so angry. And I never went back to McDonald's again, too, which is another thing. But I gave up McDonald's and I stopped going there, and I never go there anymore. So he was very impressed with what I had done. Now, that was the first bit of success. But then slowly as time went on, life happens. I have my business, I have my kids and whatnot, and slowly the weight started to climb back up again. And then it got to a point where, again, the question came, maybe I need more meds, or maybe I can't get under control. And so, again, the journey got to a point where I need to take ownership of this. And I remember one day I was feeling, for about 3 to 6 months period, I was feeling kind of moody. And I remember I dropped my daughter off at a music program, like one of those little music programs for kids. And I typed up this whole kind of essay called "What the F is Wrong with Me?" And I admitted to everything in terms of the binge eating and feeling out of control and needing help and all that kind of stuff. And so I decided to should I post that on Facebook and should I make it public, or should I just share it for a couple of friends? I decided to click public, and I forgot about it for several hours. I came back and there was hundreds of messages and comments, people telling me they couldn't believe I would share this raw information, and it really moved them. And pretty soon I was able to get myself someone who volunteered to be my nutritionist, another person helped me with physical fitness. And then I started seeing a therapist to deal with my binge eating challenges. And what was great about that is that there was a whole community of support around what I was trying to do. We started a hashtag campaign and a Facebook group called hashtag Fit My Life, because not only was I trying to get more fit in my life, I was having trouble making everything fit in my life. So that hashtag had a double entendre to it, which was really powerful, I thought. And so with that group, we've been sharing and through that journey, I've also been looking through my journey of body image. I think body image is something I've also struggled with in terms of feeling shame around how I look. And so with therapy, we've been trying to, look at the binge eating, look at the body image stuff, look at the food addiction stuff, understand what it is, embrace it, acknowledge it. One of the things I've learned, so two things I've been working on. Body image is one. So one of the things my therapist told me is to be more mindful when I eat, to be more mindful of my moments. But also when I come out of the shower, she asked me to look at myself in the mirror and find one thing I like. And that exercise was hard to do, but after a while, I started to notice things that I thought, okay, that's nice, or that's nice. And I'm getting better at changing my mindset, my narrative around how I feel about my body. And I can tell you another story is for 20 years, I never took my shirt off in public. And it was just something that I had an issue about it. And when my son was 3 years old, we were at a beach, and I said, hey, I said, hey, now you want to go for a swim? He's like, yes, Dad, let's go. And then I said, let's go. We ran to the water, and he's like, Daddy, aren't you going to take your shirt off? And I looked at him, and I was thinking to myself, what felt like years or hours. There's no way I want to pass on my body image issues to my son. So I said, of course I want to take my shirt off. And I can tell you, I took my shirt off, and I was terrified and absolutely just for 30 seconds. Once I got in the water, I realized it doesn't matter. No one's looking, and my son's delighted, and we're having a wonderful time. And that was the beginning of me getting over those issues that I had around taking my shirt off in public. And then with the binge eating, one of the things I've learned with my therapist as well as my own observations is that I used to try to stop the binges and never have binges. And what I've learned through my journey is that it's not about stopping them. I have to embrace the fact that they're going to happen, and they still do. What I've learned now is three things. Number one, to try to navigate the severity of the binge. So try to avoid the really severe ones and maybe have quasi ones or moderate binges and try to keep the severity down. Number two, to decrease the frequency in between when they happen. So instead of having them every day or every couple of days, they happen, sometimes maybe in a week or maybe in a couple of months. Sometimes I don't have binges for months. And so that having that longer frequency or longer gap between events is good. And the third piece is transitioning back to normal. So sometimes when I binge, I will either go back to normal within that evening at dinner time and have a healthy salad, or it might take several days, or it might take several weeks. And so that transition period is also something I try to make sure is quicker than it used to be. So these are things that I've been doing to try to navigate. And I realize that talking about food addiction, talking about binge eating, talking about body image, these are things when I talk about it, I open the discussion to help me process my own mental challenges around this, but also I invite people to share their stories. And so what's happened over the years is that people have been saying, Bobby, I'm so glad you share this stuff because it makes me feel not alone. And it's good to know someone like you who's out there on social media with 500,000 followers and done these TEDx talks and you're quite prolific. You are willing to share this stuff. I even shared my story around binge eating on LinkedIn. They had a hashtag campaign called Let's Get Honest. And so I shared that story on LinkedIn and people are like, wow, I can't believe you're sharing this because normally you talk about other things. And this is kind of like jarring, like, wow. And so I think it's been good because I also now feel on purpose and on a mission to help people by sharing these stories like I am here and realizing that it's okay to talk about these things. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay that we're we're struggling. And so for me, being able to share the story is something that I hope will help people. And the journey continues. I had a really good year last year. I started doing keto, which I'd avoided for many years. But I'm going to try stuff, and I tried it, and it went really well. And I eventually lost like 40 pounds. My hunger went down, and the binges were minimal. And this is great. And one of the things I learned too was that I learned in that process was the problem for me was never carbs. The problem is sugar. When I started testing myself, I did like 30 days on, 2 weeks off, 30 days on, 2 weeks off. And what I found was when I went off keto, started introducing carbs again, I still had a semblance of control. But the moment I added sugar, things fell apart every single time. Like one time I went to a wedding, had sugar, and then everything fell apart. Another time it was Christmas and I had a couple of chocolate stuff and then cookies and everything fell apart. Sugar is the real culprit to, you know, that sweet tooth or just, you know, eating poorly and things like that. So I had a lot of success with that, which was great. And then I think COVID hit, and because I had my time for working was compressed in half because of my kids, because my business was devastated, because I had to do more dishes and cooking, I had less time to, you know, prepare the right foods. And so then again, everything kind of fell apart during COVID. And so again, started to gain the weight. But again, what I find is a journey, right? I mean, it's a journey for all of us to navigate this, to process our emotions, to process our food, to try to eat healthier. Um, and you know, change the mindset around, you know, I don't like saying things like food is evil. I just say, look, there's things that are healthier for you, things that are not. And and you know, one of the things that I always say about body image too is when someone says, "Oh, look at the size of her, and look at the size of him, and he's too skinny, she's too big." Like what I focus on is everyone is beautiful. No, she's beautiful. No, he's beautiful. And my message is, you know, everyone is, and my mantra that I use is everyone is beautiful, and everyone should strive to be healthier. And so when I try to adopt that image of I'm beautiful, but I should try to be healthier, that makes it easier for me to kind of go through that process to do it. So that journey, you know, goes on for a long time, and I realize I'm going to have to navigate this thing the rest of my life. But you know, being a diabetic, you know, I still take meds, and I still try to exercise more, and I'm still working on my eating stuff. I'm still working on my body image issues, but with time, with the right support, and by talking about it, one of the things that I love right now is even when I sometimes feel like I don't have control, I definitely feel I have more control over things than I used to. I have more control over the choices that I make, more control over my mindset, more control over how I want to navigate this, and more control over what I eat. And if I do eat, and even if I do eat something that is considered, you know, not as healthy, sometimes I know why. You know, I'll say, well, you know, I'm taking a break and, you know, enjoying the holiday with or the anniversary with my wife and things like that. And I'm okay with that. You know, I'm able to actually come around and make it work for myself. So that's a bit about my journey. I share it publicly because I'm a big believer in vulnerability and authenticity. I think it's a way to influence and help people who are out there who, you know, don't have that person that they can look up to or talk to about these things. And I'm always willing to engage in these types of conversations. So that's why I share my journey very openly, and why I'm grateful to share it here on this show. So I think that's about the most of it. And if anybody has any questions or anything they want to talk about, I'm always happy to share my thoughts. Yeah.
So, Bobby, one of the things that I want to mention is that it's very important to know what food looks like. One of the things that I think is the problem with us in society is that we've forgotten what constitutes food and what food looks like. For example, we take a simple thing like an almond and we put all sort of things on there like sugar and chocolate and things like that, as if this is not good enough. So we approach nature in all her glory, of which we are an integral part, as if nature is not good enough. So we have to add to it. We have to bring more things to the table for it. When in truth, we are actually perfect as we are. We are not victims of our own lives. We're actually very powerful beings. And by telling your story, you found your power. You became so powerful in telling your story, on not hiding it. And that is something which I would love to see happen more, that people stop hiding whatever it is that they're doing and then their story, and start using the food from nature to make things like this, and to realize that nature gives us everything that we need for living and for thriving, rather than going to manufacturers who then take what we see as nature and undo it or do it differently.
Yeah.
And go
Can I
ahead.
add something to that? So I can add something to that, which is one of the things that I did too is that I started eating, you know, lots of salad and vegetables and things like that. And what's interesting is that eventually I started not using stuff to add. I never added salad dressing, so I would start eating vegetables without salad dressing. And initially, you know, you're like, oh well, you know, it's so bland. But what I found was after about 5 to 7 days, I started to really feel I could feel and taste the nuances of every single piece of food that was there. So I could actually taste the tomatoes, and I could taste the lettuce and the avocado and the cucumbers and whatever I was eating. And so I started to get a sense of the natural taste for things. And it takes time because you eat so much bad stuff, right? That you're kind of numb to those sensations. But if you just actually start eating really, really healthy, you start to actually be able to taste every little thing that you put in something, even if it's nuts or anything else.
Somebody here says powerful interview. And the reason why I think people are thinking that this is powerful is because you are so open. You are so willing to be vulnerable. I think when we hide things is when we're our most powerless, and we really then succumb to the parts of ourselves that we do not admire. But when we are willing to be open and share, we find our power, and in that we empower others.
Yeah, that's true. So being like, exactly. So when you are willing to share your vulnerability and share what you've been through, the challenges, you're taking ownership of it versus letting your mind own it over you. And so by doing so, yes, I'm now owning my body image journey. I'm owning my food and my binge eating journey. And that's why I encourage other people to talk about it versus hiding from it, because that's part of the empowerment piece.
Yes, absolutely. And so I say to you, Bobby, L'chaim, and to you, because you have become really and truly the master of being open and of showing us that we do not need to hide and be in fear of what we're experiencing in our lives. It's just another experience like any other. I love what you said about eating the salad without any dressing, because one of the things when most people start going raw, and they go raw usually for illnesses or diseases or eating disorders, or because they simply want to start honoring nature. There's so many different reasons why people do this. And one of the first things that they do is that they begin to realize, ooh, there's a whole other kingdom of tastes to which I have been shut off. And I've been tasting the same thing over and over. It's always been sugar and salt and oil, sugar, salt, and oil. And those three things define everything. We take everything, we put those three things in them and change everything. When there's an abundance in nature of so many different things that we can eat and drink and be pleased with. And that's why I was showing all the different nuts that we could use to make nut milk. When we make nut milk, we become actually intimate with the nuts. We become intimate with the milk, and it's very interesting. You'll find that you will drink it all and use it and drink it in a much more reverent way than if you simply went out and bought something that was processed and manufactured and then stays in your fridge and it rots, or you will just throw it down mindlessly without being mindful. But when you make it yourself, you're not going to just throw this down mindlessly. You're going to enjoy all the aromas. You're going to enjoy the taste. You're going to be much more grateful and thankful because you're now involved in the process. So when we change our relationship with food by being more intimate with our food, by that I mean not buying things that are pre-made, not spending so much time outside asking for others to supply you with the very nourishment and nutrient you need, and look to nature and instead start going to the farmers and farmers markets and CSAs and start being more involved with the soil and how food is created and made, and become extremely authoritarian in your life about what you will and will not eat. I am in awe, Bobby, that you decided one day not to go to McDonald's and never went again.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, one of the things I learned though is that there's always something else to replace it, right? So there would be another restaurant that I would go to that would replace it. So I think that's something to acknowledge. But McDonald's certainly was one where I definitely wanted to give it up. And one of the things I did too was the year later I did go to McDonald's a year later, and I waited in line with a friend of mine. I said, okay, I want you to order cheeseburger and fries, and so she did. And then I said, I want you to do this because I'm going to do something for my own self affirmation. So then the lady at the cash asked me, "Can I help you?" And I said, "No, you cannot. I'm leaving." And I left, and I didn't order anything. But it was meant is that it was exercised again to work my brain to reaffirm my commitment to not going there. which was kind of fun. But I also do want to acknowledge that there were other things that took their place. So I'm also mindful of that too as it comes along. It wasn't as bad. I mean, McDonald's I was binging 3 times a week, so that was one of the worst ones of my life. But yeah, I mean, if you put your mind to it, it's hard in the beginning. It's always hard the first like 2-3 weeks. But once you get past that, if you can get past that, or if you fail a couple of times, you know what? Just start again. You fail, start again, and then once you get past it, you'll be in a really great place.
Yes, many people go, I could never eat that nut. It's just, there's no sugar in it, there's no salt on it, but it's been activated, and the taste is the crunch and the texture and the taste is so clean and refreshing and really and satisfying, because after a time the palate becomes cleaner. Right. And you begin to have fun with textures and taste and colors that we never had before. And there's so much to be gained from just getting acquainted with our food supply. And when we change our relationship with food, we change our relationship with ourselves. We become more intimate with ourselves. We become more forgiving with ourselves. We become much more accepting of ourselves. And this is the whole purpose of this show, is to bring these things to people so they begin to start experimenting on their own with it and beginning to realize that they deserve it. They deserve the time in the kitchen. They deserve the time in the garden. They deserve the time in the farmer's market, caressing and touching and healing and really nurturing themselves in a way that they have never done so before. So, Bobby, to you, I want to say, and I love that you challenge yourself. I love the fact that you did not take what you were doing and what you're experiencing in your life as the end all and the be all. You did not beat upon yourself. You challenged yourself at every turn. And isn't that interesting how when you lost that first job, how it actually pivoted you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it made me realize what's more important in life. And I mean, it was also combined with my wife going through something as well, very similar at the same time. And so we were like, what's important to us? Like, what do we need in our lives? And the fact that a corporation is not willing to support what I'm going through, I mean, that's why I need to own what I'm going through and take care of myself.
Oh, wow. Please, everyone, remember those words. If you remember nothing else from this entire show today, remember those last few words well, it's not his last words, but on the show, probably, yes, that Bobby just said, because that is so critical. And we invite you all to be part of this conversation in the future, even long after this is finished. We have so many comments here right now. But Bobby, is there one last thing you would like to say to the audience? And then I'll bring in a few comments.
Yeah, I think the main thing is when it comes to your food journey, every single person is unique in their journey. You are beautiful. You are someone who, can be healthier, and it's a great thing to strive, even though we never get there. But the journey is the more important piece, and working on that mindset will go a long way. But if you could acknowledge that, there's a lot of people out there who are willing to help you and support you, like myself. And I think that's really the way to empower yourself to get that better point. But remember, we're all on a different journey, and what works for me may not work for someone else. But we all have to acknowledge that we have to do. We can do better, and we can go much longer together.
Wonderful. And there are people on here saying that they definitely need help. And you did suggest seeing a therapist, a nutritionist, a dietitian. I would suggest watching shows like this, because this is where you'll get a lot of support in this. And we always bring on people to really help and assist you. But more than anything else, start growing some food. I think when people start growing gardens, they're very surprised to see that in growing the garden, they now have a total different relationship with the earth and begin to realize that food is something that is actually nurturing and satisfying on a different level than they've ever expected before. So, Bobby, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Until next time, everyone, next week, we're going to be having 3 guests. Yes, 3 guests. And Rio's going to be back to show how to use different sweeteners other than sugar. We're going to be teaching you some sweeteners that most people don't even know about and have never used, which are extremely healing and nourishing as well. And we're also going to be speaking about GMOs and the corporate takeover for food supply and what we can do all about it. We're going to be having our guest Michael Cohen Rachel Perrin from Toronto, Canada again. And she comes on every month, and we're going to be having Rio. So see you all next week, same time, same place, and please spread the word. Bobby, many thanks. Please go and follow Bobby and his journey. And until next time, be mindful, be grateful, and please know that you deserve your own time. Thanks, everyone. Bye.